What's up, guys? Balling back at it again with another
Yes,
video.
sir. Yes, sir.
No, today we're gonna be reviewing the six quarterbacks taken in the first round in the historic 2024 NFL Draft and giving our little thoughts about how the season went. So first off is Jaden Daniels. Tarn, the reins is yours.
So, I mean, Jaden Daniels, this man is he might have had the greatest rookie quarterback season we've seen in a while. I mean, taking your team to the NFC Championship game, and not just that, like his team was not very talented. He had a pretty bad offensive line. He had pretty much no run game. I mean, he made Zach Ertz, look pretty good. He had like he made De'Ami Brown, who I don't think many people knew before this season, look like a pretty good wide receiver. The only established guy they had was like Terry McLaurin. And I mean, their defense, it was solid, but it wasn't some crazy defense like the Eagles. So I think the fact the Commanders got to the position they were was really good. Daniels, just some like brief stats on him. He had 209 passing yards per game, 1.47 touchdowns per game, and only 0.53 interceptions per game. So he's like a really, I think, clutch player and a guy who's going to become a legend in the NFL. And, he has the ability to run and pass, kind of like Lamar Jackson. So he's going to be really good in the NFL, I think, going forward. And, after that, we'll go to Bo Nix now.
Yeah, so as much as it pains for me to admit, Bo Nix had a really good year. I'm a Washington fan. He was Oregon, obviously, but yeah. So he had a 76.6 PFF grade, which is pretty good. But when you consider how his the first part of his year went was like abysmal. This is really good. He really heated up near the end of the season, right? So Bo Nix, he had 6.7 yards per attempt. He had a pass rating of 93.3, passing yards per game of 222.1, and a pretty healthy ratio of 1.71 touchdowns per game to 0.71 interceptions per game. So learning Sean Payton's playbook is very complex. His offensive scheme is really hard to learn. And for a rookie to master it kind of like 6, 7 games into the season and take the Broncos to the playoffs, a team that people have pretty low expectations for this year, is very impressive. In fact, and out of college, a lot of people just said he's a check down merchant. He's too old to do anything in the NFL. Well, um, I don't know if you guys remember, but in that Cincinnati Bengals game, when the playoff hopes are on the line, Bo Nix delivered a booming pass for a touchdown to send the game to overtime. So he has the clutch factor. He can make all those throws, and he's really accurate. So there's nothing wrong about Bo Nix. He's a really good player. So yeah. So next up is Drake May.
So with Drake May, I consider him like the wild card of this NFL draft class. Like pre-draft, everyone touted his arm talent, like certain quarterbacks, Trey Lance, Anthony Richardson, Malik Willis. But, that also could mean Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert type of quarterbacks. And I think Drake May is on the trajectory to being like a Justin Herbert because he's got some really good traits and talents and he backed it up. He has a 70 PFF grade. He had 175 yards passing per game. He had a 1.15 touchdowns per game, and only 0.77 interceptions per game. So he and I think he passed the eye test for sure. And you also have to consider his situation in New England. I mean, their number one receiver was Jalen Polk, who was kind of a bust.
Yes.
You know, you know, sorry, UW fan. And I mean, outside of that, they had like Hunter Henry, who wasn't exactly special or anything. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, and couple that with one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, and Gerard Mayo, who's the defensive head coach that got fired. I'd say for what he had, I thought he did a pretty much all you could ask for out of a rookie quarterback, and I think his talent is very clear. I thought he adjusted pretty well to the NFL game, and I expect great things from him. And we'll go to Michael Penix Jr. now.
Yeah. So Michael Penix, this is my guy. UW quarterback. He's a Husky legend. He's great, but completely unbiased. He also had a pretty good year this year. He was expected to not play at all and be a backup for Kirk Cousins, sit behind for the next 1 or 2 years, right? And really expect to take the reins in the 2026 NFL season. But Kirk Cousins, after starting pretty hot, beating the Eagles, who won the Super Bowl, um, he had a horrible stretch of games, which forced Penix to come out, right? And a lot of people were saying Penix should just, wait, continue developing, and they don't wanna force him in a bad situation, right? And put a lot of pressure because the Falcons at this time, they didn't make the playoffs, but they had a pretty good chance of making the playoffs. So, albeit Penix went in, he had 7.4 yards per attempt, a 78.9 passer rating, and these, stats are a little misleading, I'd say, because he played 5 games this year technically, but the first 2 games he played only went in for a few snaps at the end of the game, and the last 3 games he played were, like, the actual games he played in, right? And so he averaged 155 passing yards, but like I said, that's not accurate. But he did have zero point 0.6 touchdowns, zero point 0.6 interceptions, and at first glance, this looks horrible. He's throwing not even a touchdown a game, and every time he does throw a touchdown, he's throwing an interception. But if you look at the game and watch the games, like I don't think any of those interceptions were his fault. Like 2 of them dropped off the hands of his receivers. Like they hit the hands and they deflected and intercepted, right? Kyle Pitts. So yeah. And Penix also had a PFF rating of 87.9. And although he went 1-2 in the games he played in, with being the Giants, Commanders, and the really hot Panthers team, the Commanders made it to the NFC Championship. And Penix almost beat the Commanders. Right? He had some pretty bad clock management from Raheem Morris, but he didn't even have, like, the opportunity to play in overtime because the Falcons defense just, collapsed. And other loss against the Panthers, once again, horrible clock management. They had the ball, where they could go. They could score before, regulation ended, but its clock management was horrible. And then once again, he didn't touch the ball in overtime. But he just has a clutch factor, and he's passed the eye test. And I feel like, his chemistry with Drake London is only gonna increase, and they're gonna hit more of those deep balls that, Penix threw to Odunze in college, and it's gonna be a really fun and a scary season for the rest of the NFL fans. And then next up, we have Caleb Williams. So Caleb Williams, he was hyped up to be this insane quarterback who was gonna make the Bears go in like, break all the Bears records of passing because the Bears and quarterbacks don't mix well together, and it's like bring the Bears to the playoffs and at least the playoffs. They had a fully like revamped offense. They had Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore. They got DeAndre Swift, and the O line was a bit shaky, but it was decent. It was by no means horrible. And Caleb Williams, he had in terms of the stats, a decent year. 6.3 yards per attempt, a pass rating of 87.8, 208.3 passing yards per game, 1.18 touchdowns per game, but 0.35 interceptions per game. But he had a PFF rating of only 67.1, which is the lowest out of all these quarterbacks, largely due to the fact of how many sacks he took and how long he held onto the ball for. He would literally run under pressure, and his pocket awareness was pretty bad. Um, And the Bears, on top of that, had a very disappointing season with only winning 5 or 6 games. So all of that led to a disappointing year 1 for Caleb Williams. But it's the jury's still out on him. He's still, like, showing flashes of being that franchise quarterback. So I feel like if he just increases his pocket awareness, the Bears maybe improve their interior O-line, he'll have a bounce back year. And you should never give up on, like, a first overall pick this early. Look at Bryce Young. He had a bad first year, a horrible first half of the second year, and then turned it around, became like a franchise level quarterback. So, and next up is JJ McCarthy.
Okay, so um with JJ McCarthy, it's really hard to judge how he'll be since he's effectively entering like a rookie season next year because of the injury. But he did get the chance, to observe Sam Darnold, who had a pretty good year, and kind of learn from Kevin O'Connell, learn the system. And I mean, as a player, he has a relatively decent arm talent, good mobility. He's really accurate, especially on third downs, and he won a lot of games with Michigan. But I think the question is, was Michigan more of a run first team with good defense, or did McCarthy kind of be the difference maker? And that's the question we'll find out in the NFL. I feel like he's kind of got some Brock Purdy, Geno Smith vibes to him, where he can, make plays at times and be clutch, but also he's going to need, a good offensive line and good pieces around him to find success. Even if it's just or and not even like mediocre pieces, like really good pieces around him. And I think, I'm hoping for him that he's able to find some success in the NFL. And I think as we, slowly wrap this up, the biggest takeaway that I'd say from this draft class is it's a generational draft class. All six of these QBs have a really good chance to be solid to even superstars in the NFL for certain players. And I think the other one I'd say is, you know, be very rational about how you think of these NFL players, especially over like the next 3 years. Let them play, let their careers play out before you say they're draft busts or before you anoint them as like superstars. Make sure you have all the film and you see what they really are before you make any of those crazy takes that people make. And I think, we'll slowly wrap this video up. Please leave a like and subscribe. And I'll leave Razine with one question. Are you taking Michael Penix Jr. for the next 5 years or Jaden Daniels for the next 5 years?
It's a hard question, man. It's a hard question.
Yes, Mr. UW fan. All right,
Yeah,
y'all.
Danny Daniels has proven they can take his team to the NFC Championship. But Michael Penix outdueled them in the one game they played.
Oh,
So
he
I'm gonna
did.
take
He did
Penix.
now. He did.
I'm gonna take Penix.
Who got that? Who got that W though?
Well, who had the better coach? Like,
Dan Quinn, Mr. 28-3, Dan Quinn.
I know.
All right. But anyway, y'all, please like and subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time. Leave a comment down below as well. Bye.
Peace.